Hello and welcome to Goliath's Friday live stream. I have Jonathan Beri, CEO of Goliath, with me. Hey, John.
Hey, how's it going?
I think the last time you and I did a video, it was like me in an echoey room being like, hello, 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 Jonathan, Jonathan, Jonathan.
And I think I was in a closet.
We're all moving on up, I have a real microphone. You're no longer in a closet. It's great.
Yeah. And also our platform is continuing to get better.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, that's the exciting part. And so people hopefully have seen. If not, we have a brand new feature that was published on Tuesday, and it's very exciting. It's called Pipelines, and since then, we all have an internal Slack channel, and a certain someone, this guy, keeps being like, I made a new one. I made a new one. And we're like, well, John, you should show these off on the Friday live stream. And so why don't you tell us a little bit of what you're going to show us today?
Yeah. Maybe as the sort of background, pipelines allows, to build integrations, destinations for your device data coming off of Goliath into your systems, different backends. And before pipelines, we had output streams, which was also capable of doing this, albeit in a more rigid way. And one of the kind of like escape hooks we had in output streams was webhooks. And so we built some native integrations with Google and Amazon and Azure. And webhooks could allow you to like customize to send it to somewhere else. And it worked. It was useful. One of our customers used it. But with the transition to pipelines, we also have webhooks, but it kind of opens it up, more. Because pipelines allow you to customize how it works. It kind of encourages integrations. And we view this as a way to build out a lot of different integrations very, very quickly. And so actually, I got inspired during our testing of pipelines when we were testing, the native integrations, migrations, et cetera. And so I didn't have a lot of time to build out, something more robust or to test, take a device and integrated into a particular test suite. I said, okay, I'm just gonna do webhook testing and I'm gonna use our simulator so I can spend, 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever, and test something else. And then I had this split flip of like, this is extremely powerful. This allows, a web engineer or backend engineer to start to work on a project with, within their team without having to even have the hardware ready. And I think that was kind of like the inspiration and representing what persona I'm doing right now. And then showing you how easily it is for anyone, including folks who are on the hardware side, to connect to some system. And yeah.
Well, one of the things I think about is like, this is stuff that the cloud has been doing very well for a long time, right? Right. It's like, yeah, I always think about it as like, if this, then that, but just all these API services, every time you see like a marketplace, just think about, like I mentioned Slack before, but Slack has all these different plugins, and that's enabled by all these services having APIs, which are just standardized interfaces for being able to pass data back and forth. Great. The cloud is great at that generally. Hardware, a little less so, but now that like Goliath takes care of the device to cloud piece, and now it's really truly cloud to cloud and much more flexible. Like that's kind of what you're showing here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a whole ecosystem of, like we talked about, APIs, but also this sort of integration domain. So people call it integration platforms as a service, workflow automation. But that's from like a marketing tool to another marketing tool, or
Send it to my email automation.
yeah, exactly. But when it comes to devices and device data, like there's no bridge until Goliath came along, and really that's our vision for pipelines. And I picked three popular, let's say, integration things. Just they're kind of in the low code world, just to show what's possible. And actually, it kind of I did it once and then realized I could do the other two with the same effort. And those actually can go to marketing tools if it actually makes sense. But really, it's like that glue piece from devices to cloud.
I just wanted to paint one other picture too. Is just like, so you mentioned like device data coming up from a device up to the cloud. Pipelines allows you to kind of slice and dice and modify data as needed. But then another piece that's in there too, one of the things that is very easy to do now is add kind of different paths within there. So like the example I keep giving is like, one path for battery data, one path for like crash analytics, one path for sensor data. And you can even pass, so you could do that as like one big packet and slice it on the cloud and then kind of parse it out later. But then the other thing you could do is you could say, actually, it'd be really useful if these are all going to different paths, like .s/battery,
Yes.
.s/sensor.
Yes.
You could update your firmware, push that back down over OTA, and now your data is actually like from the device. It's also kind of basically the slice and dicing gets even easier then, and the routing is even better.
Yeah, and if they think of to apply from this like lens of I'm a cloud engineer at a company working on this IoT product with my colleagues, you might have device data and like the health of the device or other telemetry about the device, and then like your application data going to completely different systems. Like you might be using a third-party observability tool, like maybe it's Memfault, maybe it's Grafana, and the people who are operating the device, you want all that data to go there, but like the sensor readings and the button clicks need to go to another database, for example. That's really a clean way to do that at the pipeline level. Because they're just different systems they need to, as opposed to sending all the data to one place and then slicing and dicing and then figuring out how to route it. You kind of make the lives of both the firmware team and the cloud teams easier using pipelines.
Yep. It's almost like that's like the theme of Goliath.
That's right. Universal. Yep,
exactly. If I had to sum up Goliath in one sentence. All right, well, let's talk about these actual things you built, because you said you have 3 of them. Come on, overachiever.
I got to make sure the third one actually got pushed to production. So let me refresh my my browser page. But if you go back to our docs, we have a whole new section that came out with pipeline launch. We talked about it last week or in the recording with Dan. And one thing is we have this webhook destination. So it's this sort of generic catch-all place where if you can stream data to a system via webhook, then you use this as the destination. And so it requires just a little bit of customization. Now you can kind of route it where it needs to go. It's really this one thing, which is the URL is the key to most of this unlock. Well, that's great. And if you have a particular use case that you're trying to stream your webhook to, this is where you get started. But I wanted to start with examples the other round. So you can imagine us just filling them out. And if you go to the examples section, yep, all 3 are there. Great. Nice job, Dan. You can see we have, service and webhook. And what that means is this is not a hard-coded destination in Goliath, but just showing you how you could go do that with a custom pipeline. And so the 3 that we're going to be showing off today, we may not do all 3 because they are kind of the same, but certainly Zapier, Pipedream, and N8N are the 3 that we're talking about today. And so if we go to the Zapier webhook, which is probably the first one I'll show, it should look familiar to anyone who watched the previous video or has learned about pipelines. There's some filtering going on, but literally there's just one step in this particular example, and that's the custom URL that Zapier generates. That is the catch, if you will, of where the Zapier expects data to go from our particular account. This is actually our from the Goliath Zapier account. It's not enabled, so no one can send data there. But for a brief moment of time, when I create a new one, you could
keep getting all these packets about drop table. I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. You can send a lot of data to the Goliath account. But when you go ahead and do this, this is the same for pretty much any place that supports receiving webhooks. They'll give you a unique URL, and then you send that as the URL parameter in this custom webhook.
And is there a API key to do that sort of thing too?
Depending on the destination or the service, there's a way to add an API key to Zapier, but there's not one for the other ones. So some of them are unauthenticated. You pass those usually as headers. But in the demo, we don't use it, and it really just depends on the capabilities of the receiving service. It's strongly recommended if they offer it, you should use it, and so we're not using it in this example. But what neat thing, we have the secrets capabilities, so that's how you might do that. Actually, if I just go over here, if you recall, you can create a secret, and then that will be passed in. This is where you might put the credentials from the particular service you're trying to connect with.
Yep. Cool.
And so
quickly, Zapier, what is that? Maybe can you click through to that? Like these are like marketplaces for other connectivity type thingies, right?
Yeah. Let's see if I can pull up.
This is like the hardware dummy, like being like, so like cloud, it's like up there, man, right? Like,
It's a thing.
yeah,
I'm currently logged in. Let's see if they'll let me just browse the website. Yeah, let me just do this instead. So this is Zapier, and you mentioned if this and that, and kind of the similar category of you have sources of data. It can be any type of system. For example, your source of data might be your CRM. So your email marketing automation. And whenever something new content gets added to your CRM, then a Zapier, they call it Zaps, can know about that information, take that information, then do something with it, usually send it to somewhere else. So maybe when someone gets added to your CRM, you also want to add them to a Google Sheet. And that's the core flow for all of these automation tools. And they get more complicated. They're extremely powerful. You can not just do it to one service, you can do it to another service and then another service and then another service, or filter data or store data and then send it when something happens. And so they're extremely powerful. But like the basic use case is when something happens in one place, send it to somewhere else. And the reason to use one of these services, pay for one of these services, is that there are literally thousands of sources and destinations that you can leverage. So by tapping into it from, let's say, a Goliath pipeline, then you can have access to literally 7,000 different places to send data to. So if we're looking here, you can see these kind of are a lot of business process things. Business intelligence, communication software, which is really useful. We know of companies who literally their entire back office is run just on Zapier automation and glue code. We use Zapier actually a lot at Goliath for our back office automation stuff, but not a lot of IT things. But there's this overlap of when it's actually useful to have, let's say, sensor data in a business context. The use case I was doing, and I'll show here, is using the world's most popular UI builder in the world, a spreadsheet. Because it's when you're developing something, especially in the beginning, you might not have UI. It's really handy just to dump something into Google Sheet. It happens to be also useful for other applications, but it becomes trivial when you combine pipeline via webhook destination and Zapier. So that's the demo, and I'm going to try to do it for the first time in this new account. I create a new Goliath account and everything.
All right.
We'll see. We'll see if the demo gods are shining. So any questions before I get into it, or I forgot anything?
No, I'm busy looking through like what is the weirdest thing that's on Zapier.
Okay. Let's do the demo first and see how crazy we can get. Okay, so I'm going to do a new Zap. Ignore any of the stuff that we might be leaking about the company. And oh yeah, they have AI stuff. We're not going to use any of their AI stuff for automating. But here's where you can start looking. Did you find any weird one I should just look up?
I should have looked before we started. Sorry about that.
Well, we're going to be using webhooks, so that's the easiest one to get started. There's go ahead.
Why premium? Because that's just like kind of lets anything come through there. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think there's a free tier for Zapier, and some of the ones that are just costly, you have to have a paid account. And so we're on a paid account.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, and so we'll go ahead and create that webhook. And so that's the trigger. And that's kind of the building block of all these different systems. But what we'll do is we'll catch a webhook. I like that kind of terminology, but which basically says, listen for data coming from a particular service. And we're going to go configure that. I'm not going to do any more customization. We don't really need it for this demo. And then now it's ready to start using to trigger against. You see this URL here. This is that unique URL that Zapier creates. That is the URL we're going to use for our pipeline. And I'm going to copy that and switch over to, I just created a new project for this live stream. You won't see any data. I have a one device, just a device I'm going to use for the simulator. But in the meantime,
It has not switched
sorry.
over yet. And there it is.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch over one more time now that I remembered something. One of the handiest features in our documentation for pipelines is this uses pipeline button. And so if you see an example on this button, you click on it, and if it works as I expect, it's going to open up a dialog and go to the project you want to select and actually copy and paste that trademark documentation. Very handy for sharing and for demoing, like on this call. So you see I have this created pipeline from the example. It's not enabled yet, and it's using the example URL. All we got to do is go back to Zapier, share this tab, copy this URL to our pipeline, and I'm going to go update this one. I think it's unique. Yeah, so it was unique.
That changed, yeah. Okay.
And then I'm going to create.
Yeah, do it live. Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
The real move is to just enable it right away, see what happens.
Yeah. I usually do. I just want to show
rip.
that it's not currently enabled. So if we do anything, it won't work. So you got to make sure you enable it. And if you're curious how we develop that in the documentation, every pipeline has a little share button, and it will share the exact configuration for this pipeline, including the URL, so you can share with other folks. Or if you're trying to build examples for internal documentation, it's super handy to have this the share URL. But
and
now
we should point out too that if you have secrets in there, it will not copy the. That's one of the benefits of the secrets, is it just passes through the token for it, not the actual plain text password you might have for an API key.
That's exactly right. Speaking about secrets, I'm going to, instead of using a device for this demo, I'm just going to use a simulator, which is super handy for doing pipeline development. And I'm going to grab secrets from another screen for that test device I showed earlier. It's just a super simple PSK. I'm going to paste this in here, and you should hopefully not see the key, but if it happens, it's okay. And this is JSON data. You'll notice that in this example, we have no specific path, like Chris was mentioning. I could have called this /SAP, and use different data types, but for the simulator, it's just a standard URL and JSON data by default. So when I click this, if this is working correctly, which I hope it is, we should see data flowing on Zapier. And I don't have a split screen to show it off, but let's see what happens.
You could also show you could also show it in LightDB Stream if you wanted, right? If you enable it, you have a CBOR to JSON, or sorry, you have a CBOR to the LightDB Stream thing. But if you also had that, then you could also check it in Goliath as well.
Oh, yes, that's a great point. So I could have added another. Do I have that enabled?
You have you have a CBOR based one. So this one, you could just change that to JSON up top. Skip that. I mean, you could modify this, or you could copy one in from docs.
Let's go do this live. Chris, we're getting crazy here. I'm going to call it the original name though. Oh, we don't even have to copy. It's the default. I can call this JSON. And then I could say, I don't need to transform it, and just do the LightDB destination. I'm going to follow your suggestion, make it live. And if I think the credentials, did I lose the credentials? Yeah.
Coffee purring parrotfish. Yep.
It's the classic device name.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. I get the credentials one more time. And I'll send that data again. And if we go to see LightDB Stream, share this tab instead. Did that work? Yep. So that data just came through.
Yep.
Oh, this is cool. This new UI. I haven't seen this in a while. I'm getting distracted by shiny things. So if we go to Zapier, let's see if that worked. Yep. The data show through. Okay. So now we have the webhook flowing.
So this is just kind of like that was like a test one, because we don't actually have an action. You don't have like a then that in the same context of
exactly
that sort of thing. Yeah.
And now we know that the link is working, so we can continue on to making the destination. And so I'm going to continue with selected record. So the nice thing, one of the features of Zapier is, as you're developing it, it'll save that as like the sample data. And so if you add more steps, it'll keep on using that sample data all the way through. So you don't have to keep on regenerating data during development. And there's a ton of other things in Zapier. Like I mentioned, you can have more logic. You can store it in databases. All we're going to do is send it to Google Sheets. And you can see they have an action there. And I'm going to do it in the most hackiest of ways, which is just to add a new row.
You sure you don't want to use tables there, John? That they have the Zapier tables one.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Tables are a place to make jokes, to eat a meal, to tell stories, to be together and share, and that's why tables are like Pied Piper.
Great episode.
Fantastic. Great ad, really. We got to hire that ad company for
That's right. That's right.
Spend a lot of money on it, like a lot.
Let's see. I want to update row.
Postcards.
I think I want to update row. Is that what I want to do? Create spreadsheet row. That's what it is. So now every time
actually
data will come in.
Sorry, that was a good thing to call out there though too, because there are often at the destination there's multiple things you can do too, right?
Yeah, and you might want to update rows depending on the logic. You might want to create new tables. Again, this gets really powerful really quickly. But just from like, is this working? Can I show this to someone? Dump the data into a spreadsheet to show that it's going through another system. That's kind of the main application here. So we're going to create a spreadsheet row, and then I'm going to choose my my work account. What could go wrong, right? And I'm going to actually create. I'm going to create a document right now. So spreadsheet. If anyone watching this doesn't know about this Google Sheet hack, if you're using Google Sheets, if you do sheets.new, it'll automatically create a new document in Google Sheets, which is super handy. So Friday live stream, Zapier. And I'm going to do one more thing, and you'll see why this matters, but I'm going to create column titles, lat, long, and temp. Lat, long, and temp, which kind of matches the data that we're sending. And if you go back to our Zapier screen and continue, let's see, search for Zapier. Hold on. I gotta make sure that it's looking for the right spreadsheet. There we go. And then we're going to use the default sheet. And so this is now pointing to the document we just created. Okay. But you'll notice that it now has fields for lat, long, and temp. This is a feature that is actually common across, I saw in Pipedrive and in N8N, that it can infer if you have column titles, then we should map that data, which is super handy. Because now all I have to do is say, I want this JSON field to match to lat, this JSON field to match to long, and this one to temp. And that's actually magic. Like I understand how software works, but just how I didn't have to write any of that, and it was exactly what I
think what you do is you call this a schema now, and then you call yourself a database architect, and then you walk around Silicon Valley and get a job anywhere you want if you want.
But exactly. Or if you're a solo engineer at a startup trying to build your dashboard and help your CEO show something to investors, like you've just built a cloud backend with lots of hand wavy and things like that.
Right.
I find it very empowering. And so now let's go test.
John, I'm going to let you go a little open loop here for a second. I have someone at my door. I'll be right back. Sorry, I know live streams.
All right,
being
the mice will play.
I'll still be listening. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So we just tested. We ran a test, and if you remember from the original test that we proved on the trigger, We're using the same data, so 51, 70, not 74, and to verify that it's actually working, ta-da! That data from that test case is now flowing through into Zapier, into Google Sheets. So the end-to-end flow is now working. So to kind of remind, we've set up a pipeline using a webhook destination pointing to a Zapier generated webhook URL. Then in Zapier, we created a Zap that it listens for webhook events from a pipeline, maps that to the key value JSON pairs, and then writes it to a Google Sheet. I've written no code. I haven't even written any JSON at this point. I'm literally just using everything out of the box from Golioth, which is sweet. So I'm going to go publish this, and
sorry, you're on the spreadsheet still. That's publishing the Zap. Is that right?
Oh yeah, sorry. I probably should have shared my whole window before starting, but I just published this. You can see this is now on. V1 of the Zap is live. I'm going to call this the live stream pipeline. And this is live. If I go back to the simulator, where's that simulator? On this screen, I can send data. And if we could go over to share this tab, you can see that by the time I'm on the other end, all three of those made its way through. And if we change one value and make this like the secret to life, everything in the universe, and then send 42, just to kind of prove that it's not being cached. There
it is.
There you go. Yeah. It's pretty snappy too. And so, the a good use case, right? You're developing the hardware, you're developing your firmware for your device, and you want to quickly be able to show this somewhere. You can easily do this in a Google Sheet now. You can throw a chart on this and show the charting of data over time without getting into fancy things like Grafana or custom dashboarding. And yeah, no code. That's like kind of the beauty of this whole system.
That's pretty critical for me. Yeah. No website code too. I think that's the other thing. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, well, you just like write some Python, put it, in a Lambda function, whatever. I'm just like, I don't know. What do I do?
You will like you will definitely have to do that. Maybe you won't have to do it because you have other folks on your team who are getting onboarded. But oftentimes you just got to prove like this sensor is sending, is collecting data and making it to the cloud. How can I go validate this now? Well, now you can. Or you need to show troubleshooting something. It'll be super quick to stand up a pipeline, get it into a spreadsheet, and then graph the data using Google's built-in charting, in a few hours, right? And then, instead of waiting for the next sprint when your teammates are available or when you have bandwidth to go write that Python script, you, the person responsible to try to figure this out, can just go do it. I think that's the kind of power of tying, the Golioth cloud to all these super powerful tools to make your life like easier.
Yeah. And so you said at the beginning, so Zapier, N8N, and Pipedrive, do you think they're similar kind of coverage? I mean,
Pipedrive. Pipedrive is actually another tool that Zapier works with.
It's a CRM tool we used to use that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And this recording this practice for this earlier, Pipelines and Pipedream got a little bit of a tongue twister. So they're very different. They're in a similar space in the sense like they have thousands of integrations. Actually, let's just pull up the Pipedream as a good example.
Yeah.
Share this tab. You can create a new workflow. I'm actually not going to do this, but even from the creation process, you can kind of see this feels different. And because Pipedream and N8N, and there's several others, are actually more geared towards developers. So they integrate with more developer-focused integrations, so less CRMs, more databases, and data manipulation tools. The configuration is still low code, but you can see like timeouts and amount of memory and concurrency limitations. Those are things that developers who are building integrations that will be used as part of a backend actually care more about. And so I would say that Zapier is great for business processes or maybe less engineering type folks, and Pipedream and N8N are the ones for actual engineering engineers to build parts of their backend without having to write a lot of that code themselves. And so if you kind of see it, it looks similar though, which is the nice thing. You don't have to write code. You actually can write code if you want to. They have a trigger. They have different triggers you can select from. And I was able to build the exact same thing using Pipedream and N8N. So webhook via a Goliath pipeline destination, write it to a Google Sheet and have the exact same data. So it's not worth revisiting, but you can kind of see that the UI is pretty similar. The capabilities are pretty similar, and you can again see that URL that you would use for the parameter of your pipeline.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, this is a big unlock. I think it's interesting, thinking about this as a hardware engineer, just like it feels like the cloud's a little friendlier now. I'm still a little frightened of it, a little bit of like what is a database again? But no, I'm
just... and I think yes, certainly. And you work with engineers and hardware engineers every day, and our mission is to make the cloud friendlier for those folks. But it's also the other way around. Devices and device data and dealing with like getting sensor readings into your backend is equally hard. This is why we built pipelines. One of the reasons why we built pipelines is to make it friendlier on both sides. But I find that tools, even for folks who are comfortable in databases and servers, like not having to build it right away, maybe you'll eventually build it, is still super powerful. And so I've seen, even engineers at Goliath use Zapier to glue something together that they'll know they'll replace, but it's actually good enough for the the first iteration of that. And so I think relying on these tools to just make gluing the clouds together. It's probably some funny term we can come up with of gluing clouds together. But I think it's just powerful for everyone involved in the building part of an IT product.
Definitely. All right. Well, John, keep on hacking with more pipeline destinations and authoring wonderful things here. That's been really useful. I'm going to keep thinking about other things I can push up to the cloud, so then I can hand them over to my new cloud engineer, which is you. I don't know if you knew that.
I'm a junior pipeline engineer.
There you go, junior pipeline engineer. Yeah.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
I'm just kind of curious. Spreadsheets is useful. I think there's a whole bunch of applications for that early hardware bring up phase, validation phase. Are there other use cases that the cloud can help, maybe in the development phase or in the troubleshooting phase, that maybe we could try to do in a future example?
Well, one thing I've talked about with the team is just kind of the making sure it gets to Goliath initially, right? And that's actually stuff that we're pushing in for future revisions. That's going to be like just just having that heartbeat, visualizing the heartbeat. We already have it on the back end, but then kind of bringing it forward so it's very easily viewable to the actual person responsible from device to cloud. Usually that's where my stuff falls off. But then thinking about like past projects I've done and other places that I've been asked to send data like that before, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, in the context of like reference designs, it's often been visualization platforms. And actually, I was looking on Zapier. There are a couple of other places that you can kind of bounce data back out to. So it might open up other visualization stuff too, like other charting tools, things like that. And it might even be like an embedded charting tool. I mean, heck, you could even say you could have a published graph from Google Sheets that's live updating if you really wanted. But
I actually think it's a great use case because Google has a bunch of charting stuff built in. They also have other commercial products. They bought a big visualization company. I can't remember. Was it Looker?
Yeah.
Anyway, they have like advanced business intelligence software, which could literally suck in the Google Sheet, and you could probably build a V1 of your dashboard for real.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and I think that is the thing. It's a lot of these are contexts that I think a lot of our users will understand more natively. Like you said, spreadsheets are just like kind of like table stakes. Everybody gets them. That might be enough, but then other tools that are in here too. And I really should have looked through more of these on Zapier beforehand. But fitness, gaming, I don't know.
One of the things, there's a use case that I think you brought up recently, Maybe you don't remember bringing it up, but like, a pipeline is extremely powerful because it can take data from Goliath and send it where you want it to go. And with different types of steps and transformations, and we're adding a bunch of transformations, like there'll be more that's capable. But for example, if you wanted to do something that stores data and then looks at it and does something with that, like averages it or alerts on it, that's possible to do to some extent with pipelines, but not part of the product today. Like you could totally use the tables feature in Zapier to collect the last 10 readings and average it and then send that to another destination.
I see. Yeah.
Or even back into like DB Stream, but that's another application. That's okay, kind of thinking of like how to use multiple steps in these tools to do store data or call out to another service, which is not possible to do with just pipelines today.
I want to share my screen real quick just to show you what I have now found. What is very likely I think takes it, which is actually this is a product that I've known about for a long time, and I didn't know that they had an endpoint, but they do. So here we go, John. This is the most ridiculous end zap that I found so far. Ready for it? Do you remember this one?
Yeah. Why'd you describe it?
It's not this. This is a Fitbit, but this Pavlok is basically. Do they say what it is on here? It's a true zap. This is a true zap. So Pavlok is like a conditioning reminder thing where like if you don't achieve your goal for the day, it pops you, it zaps you with like a little bit of static. And that's like, so this is an output here. So
yeah, things like a play on Pavlov's dog.
That's right.
It was a very famous.
I remember when this thing came out, I didn't realize it was actually still around. So looks like we could have like maybe we could make like if you don't use your workout tool that's going through Goliath, then it shocks you or something like it.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm just going to get more motivated. That's all I'm really saying, John.
We'll have to contact HR to see if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
If you assign liability.
Mm-hmm.
Shocking was not in the original contract.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's my current favorite. If people find other ones on these services, I'd love to hear about them. They should leave them down in the comments below or on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So please let us know. We will continue to push stuff out, and we have Hack Day coming up too. So I'm excited about that. I think we're going to see probably about a couple weeks from now, you'll see some outputs from that too. You may be seeing me buying a Pavlok as well as a.
You might have to do something custom, like Simone Gertz, who does the queen of terrible robots.
Thing. Yeah. Slaps her awake. That sort of.
Yeah. Or go the other direction. Every time you hit your goal, like a candy bar comes down.
Bingo! I like that too.
Always looking for the positive enforcement here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks, John. Thanks for showing us stuff today.
Yeah, it was fun. See you next time.